This is what we come from. We are nature. We come from the forests and the deserts and the jungles. That's who we are. Our nature is there somewhere. Deep there. Just like it's deep within us.
Animal tracking has pretty much been a general passion of mine, and the material with Paul Resendes was something that was a little bit different than your normal how to identify a track. There is a word that trackers use discussed as inner tracking, right? But what is inner tracking?
Tracking brings to the forefront the fact that we're missing things sometimes. When that person comes out of the forest, they go like, wow, I don't believe I was missing all of that. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of stuff we're not seeing, not only out there in the environment and in the forest, but also inwardly.
In 2002, I was invited by Paul Resendes, John Young, Charles Worsham to do a inner tracking conversation with about 30 or 40 other wildlife trackers, where they felt that all their students were going towards the same place, which was the inner tracking. And they thought it would be great to get everybody together, some of their top students at the time.
Where can we go with it? How do we communicate this to others? Can we communicate about it amongst ourselves?
What Paul was targeting there was our ideas of who we think we are. And if our idea was, well, I'm a new indigenous tracker, then he's targeting that part of me that is attached to that identity.
If you're a tracker, if you want to ID with that, then the whole world is turned into bad and good according to that. You make your enemies, you make your friends, whoever is satisfying your image that you cop to.
Many of the students wanted to be there because they felt they would get something out of it. And right off the bat, Charles starts off and says,
the other thing is expecting that the three of us are going to do anything for you.
You're not going to get anything from us here.
I think it's about examining that part of us that is always so busy about progressing, getting somewhere, getting more aware, getting more spiritual, getting something out of this session.
And then we had another side that seemed to be saying, we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We don't want to throw out those indigenous ideas and cultures, that identity. And I felt personally torn between the two things, almost having to make a choice, because Paul keep pointing to the same thing for me. What parts fit what Paul's saying? So I'm trying to find relationships between the two so that I can make it seem like it's okay. We spent a number of years discussing this, and then a number of years of not discussing this at all, and then coming back and then discussing it a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
For me, there was certainly a part for me for a number of years, especially in the beginning, really trying to understand what the conversation was all about. Really trying to grapple with it and wrestle it, reading as much as I could, grasping for understanding, convincing myself, do I agree with this? Do I don't agree with this? Actively seeing what's going on in myself. A number of years that all dissipated. And then I come back to these conversations like we did in Wisconsin a couple months back.
So I did this for years with George, talking the way I'm talking with you. At some point, we were talking about openness. And all of a sudden, it came in to George. We're not talking about George getting some new philosophy or some kind of new idea or some kind of new way to live that's going to straighten out the world. Something came in and straightened him out.
And we've seen that happen with me and you sitting in the kitchen table just over in the other room where
Years ago.
there was a passion for truth within yourself, and there was communication between you and I, which changed your life.
Yeah, I would say it's the same life that I was living before, without a thinker cluttering everything that I'm observing and listening to. You know, I'm sitting here listening to people in the circle throughout the whole time. I don't really, and just in general in life, there isn't the judgment that might have been placed in, there isn't the same judgments that were being screened through. There's still preconditioned responses that have come up, things that have been ingrained from a long time. Those things continue to slowly dissipate. Someone said the first day, like a muscle or their ego on steroids, big muscles. If you've been entrenched your whole life viewing things from a certain perspective, then you awaken. It's not like those muscles all of a sudden disappear. They slowly atrophy. So that would be the biggest feeling of change. And it wasn't something new. I mean, it really wasn't something new. It was openness was there the whole time.
Right.
I guess I want to start off this time discussing what you mean by passion for the truth. I know that's something when we were in the field a lot, tracking in the past, you'd often bring this up, passion for the truth.
Usually when I'm using that term, I'm referring to the fact that if the truth is what's really important, that's all that matters. If what's important to you is the truth above all else, then basically, and more than likely, the truth's going to come through. Other things are not going to get in the way. You know, and if the truth is really important, then that automatically infers or equals openness.
For some people, inner tracking can actually be you follow down your thoughts. You know, you're watching your thoughts and you're keeping track of those thoughts or keeping track of different emotions that arise, and it's almost like you're watching an animal going through the woods and following it.
Yeah, and when you use the words attention or constant observation, it's easy to interpret that as meaning that's something that I'm going to have willpower over to do, that constant observation and attention, right?
Right. We can become aware of ourselves trying to be watchful.
It really highlights the ways we're operating, not only in tracking, but you take it a step further into our relationships in the world.
And I think what I saw you doing when I was going out in the field with you a lot, particularly with other students, you would take advantage of that situation to bring it to people's attention, to bring that awareness to people of what's not only happening with the track, but then what is actually happening internally.
Right. We had a good example of that with the people that were tracking fishes for a whole day, tracking fisher cats in the snow for a whole day. Matter of fact, I was out in these forests. Those people saw hundreds of fisher cat tracks and many, many trails. We walked so many trails and tracked so many fishes. Next day, I take them out into the forest and we come upon this trail, nice fresh trail. So I asked them, I say, okay, so what is that? Silence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting, dead silence. I'm waiting. Oh, folks, come on now, what's that? Silence. That's the 10 people there. Guaranteed
Okay.
that in the minds of some of those people, Fisher came up.
Mm-hmm.
Because all that layering went on those tracks, and almost guaranteed, after all the layering they did, Fisher came up. But there was self-concern.
Mm-hmm.
And that self-concern is, oh gee, maybe I'm wrong. What if I'm wrong? I don't want to say it's Fisher. I don't want to, look like I'm wrong or anything. So fear, that's fear, self-concern, kind of stops the mind from working freely. The mind doesn't need that. It needs to move. It needs to work. But all that self-concern kind of interrupts, freezes it, stops it. No passion for truth, just, again, the self-concern.
Yeah, there's more to tracking for me than being right or wrong. There's more to tracking than, are you identifying the tracks correctly or not? There's something that I see within the context of doing tracking as an activity and as an opportunity to look at the types of questions we've been posing. How is the self working here? How's self-concern working? How's fear operating? How's frustration and anger? Anything that can come up.
And ultimately, I think that's where you and I would like to go with this video, is to get in there to the scary areas where people tend not to go. They step away from it. They put up blocks to see in certain things. And those things are creating a lot of havoc in the world around us, but we're not aware.
And that's why I say tracking is this gentle way to look at it, because it's just an animal track on the ground. You go a further, then it gets scary, because then we're looking at structure of our whole structure of societies, structures of cultures. And one thing about it is there's nothing that in what Paul or what I've been suggesting says that you have to get rid of all of these groups or ideas or the knowledge that has been learned from different ways of being. Indigenous cultures, it's not saying to get rid of those things, it's really just pointing out how we've identified and associate, or how it's easy to identify and associate with those, that then you can't see past those belief systems.
The only will we have is the will to resist the truth. My own awakening reflects upon this very clearly. After having read Krishnamurti for what seemed like ever, after reading every book he wrote and many, many other people, and doing tremendous amount of self-inquiry, which I'm not sure done me any good, but Krishnamurti was always saying, you know, pay attention. Every other word, you know, through everything he was saying, he seemed to be saying, pay attention. So I was hearing that consciously and unconsciously, you know, that was the thing to do.
To do, right.
Pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, I was paying attention. I was a hatha yana yogi in ashram, and meditated an hour every day, done 2 hours of hatha yoga every day, you know, and I was paying attention. And I was out walking in the forest one day, and I was paying attention. Boy, I was good at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was, every footfall, every sound, every little needle dropping, I was paying attention. All of a sudden, there was a seeing that was forced. Attention. That was contrived. There was a me that was doing it. There was this idea of who I was that had consciousness, that had awareness, that was capable of attention. There was this idea about that made up by thought. And this idea was trying to pay attention, and it was this basic belief in this idea, trying to pay attention to ideas, thought trying to pay attention to thought. And all I could see was that me, who I thought I was totally blind. As that process engaged, it engaged and separated itself from thought. It was thought, but it was participating as the seer, the doer, the one who was attentive. It was participating in that. But it didn't see a damn thing. It didn't see that it was separate. It didn't see what it was doing. But all of a sudden, there it was. The whole thing.
All revealed.
All revealed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nothing to do with it. I was blind. I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't capable of that. All of a sudden, there was something else. There was a seeing that came in and just put it all to ashes. It was all false. There was no ability to accomplish the seeing, do the seeing, be the seeing. It wipes everything clean. And at the same time, the whole universe was appearing in this seeing. Everything was being revealed in this. All beings were being in this. So that is, to me, what we are striving to communicate. If that can happen to another person, the video done its job. You know?